Hi everyone, can you hear me? I can't hear.
Have any comments you wish to share with the Commission, please know that you have 3 minutes to speak.
No one.
No comments, we'll move forward. This is the time for the Commission to consider matters under consent calendar. Items include item number 1. Do I have a motion to consider item number 1?
Let's move it. We all second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Matter approved by unanimous consent. We will now consider matters under the business calendar. The first item on the business calendar is item number 2, approve a pre-commitment of $1,200,000 in inclusionary housing fees for the development of 4 affordable ownership units located at 1921 West Washington Avenue. Will staff report on the matter?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Through a process, thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Through a process that started back in December with the issuance of an RFP for affordable housing development, we are now here today with the second award of affordable housing funds for an exciting project to present to you for consideration. For our presentation of this project, I'd like to invite Claudia Shaw, our housing firms analyst, for our staff presentation, followed by a presentation by Habitat Green Bay.
Oh.
She gonna do that? Yes. Okay, great. Good afternoon, members of the Commission. I'm going to give you some background on our recommendation for the award for Habitat for Humanity. On December 7th, 2021, the City Council authorized the Community Development Agency, CDA, to release a fiscal year 2021-2022 request for proposals, RFP number 21-136, to develop affordable rental and ownership projects. Following this approval, on December 8, 2021, CDA issued RFP 21-136 for affordable housing development. The RFP was published on both the City and the Housing Authority's website, Planet Bids, and an email blast was sent to interested developers and nonprofit organizations. The proposal included the following funds: inclusionary housing funds in the amount of $10,093,318, the Home Investment Partnership Program, known as HOME, in the amount of $3,161,226, the HOME program, the American Rescue Plan portion of HOME, which was $5,256,327, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, also known as NSP, in the amount of $135,107, Also included were 25 project-based vouchers for a total of funding available in this award of $18,645,978 and 25 project-based vouchers. There was also a land asset included that's currently owned by the city, by the Housing Authority at 302 East 22nd Street. The deadline for the proposals for the RFP was on Monday, February 28, 2022. The city received 3 eligible proposals prior to the deadline. 2 of the proposals were deemed ineligible, but the 3 eligible included Jamboree Wise Place, CNC Development, and Habitat for Humanity. After the deadline, the staff conducted a minimum threshold review of each proposal to ensure compliance with the RFP requirements. Following the minimum threshold, staff formed a review panel to conduct the review analysis of each proposal. The review panel consisted of the Assistant City Manager, who is also the Executive Director of Community Development, the Executive Director of Planning and Building Agency, the Principal Civil Engineer of the city's Public Works Agency, the Housing Division Manager, and the Housing Programs Analyst. We also had representatives from Kaiser Marston Associates and RSG, who served as third-party advisors to this review panel. On May 4th, 2022, the review panel interviewed all the developers who submitted a proposal. Following these interviews, the review panel discussed and deliberated upon the final scoring and selection of the proposals. The review panel agreed upon the final scores below. Based on an average of the individual reviewers' scores, Jamboree Wise Place scored a total of 95 points. Habitat for Humanity for their project on Washington Ave scored 75, and CNC Development is still pending further negotiation. After results of this, the conclusion was to make a recommendation for award to Habitat for Humanity of Orange County for their project on Washington Street for a total of $1.2 million in inclusionary housing funds. The award recommendation includes a pre-commitment letter for Habitat for Humanity of Orange County. They will provide, the commitment letter will provide enforceable funding commitment from the city for the development of 4 affordable ownership units at 1921 West Washington Ave, Santa Ana. The pre-commitment letter includes a few conditions, including Habitat for Humanity must secure any and all permits and discretionary approvals that may be required for the project by the city. At least 5% of the total number of residential dwelling units developed by Habitat for Humanity shall provide mobility features, and at least 2% of the total number of residential dwelling units developed shall provide communication features. Habitat for Humanity must also have a local preference for residents who live or work in the city of Santa Ana. And I think that concludes our background of the program. And now we're going to introduce Troy Hendrickson with Habitat for Humanity, who will share his PowerPoint.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking this time. My name is Troy Hendrickson. I am the Vice President of Land Acquisition and Development for Habitat for Humanity in Orange County. Just by way of background, starting our first partnership with the city of Santa Ana back in 1990, with the first homes completed in 1992. To date, we have completed 28 affordable home ownership opportunities through a partnership with Santa Ana. Can I have the next one, please?
This one?
Mine jumped down just a little bit. Maybe go back one.
Go back.
Okay. Oh, thank you, okay. So currently, we are getting ready to break ground on another partnership where we are building two affordable homes in the historic French Park District. Both of those homes will be moderate income units. The addition of the Washington Avenue project will bring 4 additional low-income opportunities to the city of Santa Ana. This site was acquired back in December of 2021 for a purchase price of $580,000. At that time, this was prior to this RFP coming out that we are presenting on today. This project would have, without the partnership of the city, would not have been low income in nature. These units would have had to have been moderate income in order for this project to happen for Habitat. So it's important to just point that out, that without this partnership, we could not have done these 4 homes as low income units. You can see the current, back just for a second. Those structures are what currently sits on this site. It's been vacated, is my understanding, for quite a few years. We're very anxious to get started there and start construction. So the vision, what we are proposing are 2 duplex buildings, 4 units. They are all identical in size, about 1,440 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, attached 2-car garages, and each unit will have approximately 530 square feet of private yard. That is shaded in the lighter green, and then the darker green that you see up there is what we'll call common area. There are 5 additional parking spots plus a handicap spot. And I think that was it. We can go to the next one now. So these are just some rough elevations. Top left there is actually what you would see driving by from Washington Street. It is configured in such a way it's a long, deep lot. So you'll see that from the street, and then you would drive into actually where the garages are. Next slide, please. So obviously, as this is not news to anyone, we've now eclipsed $1 million in average median sales price for homes in Orange County. In order to, next slide, please. So again, speaking to our partnership, what this subsidy will do will cover the costs of Habitat's land purchase, in addition to taking these 4 units and making them low income as opposed to moderates where we originally ran our performance. Frankly, without partnerships like these with cities like Santa Ana, just with construction costs, land costs, what we do would be, I wouldn't say impossible, but it would be certainly very difficult without partnerships. Next slide, please. So as far as benefits, we see it as twofold. Obviously, benefits to the city, repurposing and creating new affordable ownership opportunities on a piece of land that's currently sitting unused. Continuing to demonstrate the city's commitment to providing affordable housing. Obviously, the benefits to our families, stability, sense of community, and the opportunity to actually build wealth through equity.
Do you want the next slide?
Yes.
That's a video.
also proud to say we just dedicated 3 of these buildings, so 6 units in the city of Stanton about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks this past Saturday, or this coming Saturday. So we built it, we know how to build it, and we are ready to go on it. So that's very exciting. There's no additional costs as it relates to product development or anything because we've already done this. I think that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Troy. And with that, staff available for any questions from the commission. The board have us here as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff?
Thank you.
Commissioner Santana?
Great. Mr. Brown, where is the 1.2 coming from? One.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Santana. The funds are coming from our inclusionary housing fund.
Right. And so the 1.2 will go just to buy the land. Is that right?
The 1.2
Or
million.
the city already owns that site on Washington.
No. So the $1.2 million is going towards the project budget, the proposed buying Habitat for Humanity. And as Troy mentioned, a portion will go towards the acquisition costs. Troy, do you want to say more?
In essence, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
In essence, it covers the purchase price of
I
the
don't think the commissioner from the Zoom can hear you because it really sounds far away if you're ever on the Zoom call. You guys can share your mic.
So what is covered through the $1.2 million subsidy is the cost of the land, and then about $145,000 per unit, which helped us to get to a place where these units could become low income as opposed to moderate, how we originally
And so I understand it's coming from the inclusionary fund, but is any of the money coming from ESG funds?
It's not. When City Council approved the issuance of the RFP for affordable housing development on December 7th, the RFP only included funding from our inclusionary housing fund, home program, the home investment partnership program, home ARP program, and project-based vouchers. We didn't make any ESG funds or ESG CD funds available in the RFP.
So it's 2 more questions on that, but is there any VASH vouchers going out?
There are not any VASH vouchers in this RFP. Our experience and your experience in terms of awarding VASH vouchers and project-based VASH vouchers specifically in the past makes sense because we have commonly made those available, but not in this RFP. We only made regular housing choice vouchers, project-based vouchers available.
And leading to my last question is, here it says, on proposed projects, a farmhouse architecture consists of a duplex building and will provide 4 additional ownership opportunities for low income. When you say ownership opportunities, can you walk me through like how that recipient may be the owners of that?
Sure. We do have regular orientations where we reach out to the community, and as was mentioned in Claudia's report, we will reach out to Santa Ana, whether families either currently work or live within the city, will have certainly an opportunity to become part of what we call a program family. When a family is selected, and there are credit and financing coaching that is done. I hope I'm not going too deep here, but
I think this is important because I feel like everyone who drives by a house where it's come from, one's between, they always wonder like, how was the town selected? Was it a lottery? Was it, how did they get so lucky? And I think it'd be great if you just, you said there's a selection process. I understand that there's orientation as far as like, credit score. But do they pay to own? Is that how it works? Or?
Yes, and I think first of all, families are selected. They will perform sweat equity, whether that be on site in one of our retail operations, but it does help us as far as gauging desire. Most of our families are more than willing to jump in and learn about that, and there's benefit beyond too, because if you understand how it goes together, it actually sets you up to maintain it. So again, I don't wanna get too sidetracked, but, they're, again, with the credit, but they assume a mortgage. So let me just, simplify it this way. If it costs us $450,000 to build a home, and our family can qualify for a $300,000 mortgage, Habitat fundraises around that 150 to make it happen. That's sort of simple math, but that's really how it works.
Right.
But they qualify for a 30-year mortgage based on their ability to pay, which will not exceed more than 30% of their gross income.
To me, I mean, it's great, and I thank you for like the work you guys do. It's actually, I mean, when you see houses reaching the 1 million mark, when it's sold, I mean, so maybe getting too much deep into the weeds of this, but so they have to pretty much pre-qualify that they're going to be a home buyer, right? That they have to have the credit, they have to have like be able to pay their mortgage, insurance. But do you guys refinance the house after, like, let's say the market takes a tumble or the housing market lowers, or does it stay at that 1.5 with what has been appraised?
Well, their mortgage, again, just like any other mortgage, doesn't reflect any shifts in the economy. That is what they would be, obligated to pay for that 30-year period.
I understood that sometimes people like can refinance, and I'm not trying to walk,
Okay,
I'm
no, that's a
just
fair
more
question.
curious.
Actually, we have gotten this in the past. Refinancing is not an option because we do not allow families to take money out. The equity, part of the arrangement is the equity is shared. So if someone were to own a home for 20 of those 30 years, they would have built up equity. But they do not get all of that equity. That's part of the trade-off, if you will, is Habitat has an equity share there as well, that once they sell the home back to us, what it does is it sets us up to make any necessary repairs to clean up that home and bring in our next program family. Because that home is going to stay affordable, essentially in perpetuity, the way it's structured.
Right, but you're saying here ownership opportunities, but then you're saying that they can sell it back to you, or let's say the homeowner, God forbid, something happens tragically where, they lost a spouse and their income flips around, like they can't afford that payment, what happens?
In that situation, and I should say, Habitat has first right of refusal in all of our purchase and sale agreements. So if family one wants to sell back for whatever reason, death, someone has decided to, relocate, whatever, Habitat has first right of refusal, and the logic behind that is, it is always going to cost us less to buy that home back than it will be to build a new one in the future. So that's how we maintain those affordable units, is by buying them back. But which never happened, but if Habitat said we don't want to buy that home back, they would still be obligated under their agreement to find a qualifying family, meaning it would still have to remain affordable.
Question for Ms. Brown. For financing, I know that in the past you've done your workshops and your trainings when you guys do the first home buyer assistance program. Who do they choose a lender, or does it go through Habitat's lenders, or how does that work?
Yeah, for our down payment assistance program, the family chooses the lender. We're unable to steer a family to a particular lender with a particular rate or anything like that. That's a violation of our program regulations. In the case of purchasing the Habitat for Humanity unit, the family goes through the family selection committee and family selection process established by Habitat and refined over years and decades of experience with Habitat as well.
I'd like to add that also, once the families qualify and they pre-qualify, and we know for sure that's the family that's gonna buy this house, the city will do underwriting as well, because we have to ensure that they do meet the qualifications as low income and that they meet the guidelines of the program. And then the city actually prepares documents as well in second position. So we will go behind the first mortgage and provide it's a deed restriction. And a deed restriction that states in the event that they have to live in the home, usually it's 45 years or 55 years, And then in the event they sold that property, we do like a promissory note in the amount that is equal to the difference of the appraised value versus the affordable price. So just say as an example, the house sells for 500,000, but it appraised at 700,000. The city's deed of trust and promissory note will be for the difference of 200,000. So in the event, for some crazy reason in the future, that house ends up getting sold, then they would have to pay back the $200,000 because we're losing an affordable unit. But that, like Troy said, that never happens because if someone does sell one of these homes, they typically go through Habitat. And I've been here for 25 years, and in all the years I've been here, I think we've had 1 or 2 sales, and it was because someone was moving out of state.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Final question, and then I'll leave it back to the commissioners. Right, can we write, because I know that there's some, like, we designated homes, like, I remember when folks were applying for the housing voucher, can we make these a Section 8 housing voucher program for Habitat Humanity? Right?
I thought you were going in a different direction with that question, actually. But I'm going to answer the question I had in my head, and then I'm going to answer your question too. So,
is the goal to make people be homeowners, or is the goal to house folks who are like experiencing, can we program this house to be like a Section 8 voucher recipient so it gets paid directly to Habitat Humanity?
we cannot in this format. The only what you're referring to is where we would take a Section 8 voucher and we would project base it, right?
Yes.
And project-based vouchers operate similar to Section 8 vouchers in that they're for rental units. And HUD doesn't allow us as a housing authority to take a project-based voucher and say, Troy, here's 4 project-based vouchers or Section 8 vouchers, right? Here's 4 Section 8 vouchers that guarantee the mortgage payments over a 20-year period. HUD doesn't allow us to do that. It would be.
I understand it's HUD, but I feel like, it's a federal program, I'm not gonna rewrite it, the answer is no, but it would make sense if moving forward we have projects, like you said, these vouchers are guaranteed 100%, like, pay on time, like, insurance that you're gonna have somewhere to live. So, like, if you could, moving on in the future, and this is not, no thing on you, but maybe like, for other future projects, that'd be something pretty cool to consider.
I think you're, honestly, I think you're onto something, that idea and that concept. I've never seen it in any form of research or any form of discussion in terms of the voucher program. We talk a lot about in the industry about, increasing vouchers and allocating vouchers for special populations. And HUD has tinkered with the homeownership program regulations a little bit recently, but they've never.
How is it different from like a motel conversion? So like, let's say you convert, the city buys a motel, and this is.
Contact products for 75. Can you just define like the differential and then what goes into compounding that final score?
Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioner Cornelius. So the RFP that we issued had a set of scoring and selection criteria. I don't have that scoring and selection criteria in front of me, But the review panel, made up of our assistant city manager, myself, our executive director of planning and building agency, public works agency designee, Claudia, we followed that scoring and selection criteria during our deliberative process. Now, Habitat for Humanity was competing against a rental project, and there were various differences in the proposals, and the scoring was how do I say it politically correct, right? Troy sitting right next to me. It was lower in areas for certain scores, but at the end of the day, the review panel scored Habitat's project at 75, which was 5 points above our minimum threshold of 70. If Habitat for Humanity had scored below 70, we would not have had the authority in our policies to recommend them for an award. But they scored a 75, and therefore the review panel is recommending them. Now, relative to the competition, right? Because much of these deliberative discussions and scoring and selection criteria are relative to one another. The Habitat for Humanity was competing against Wise Place, and both of those projects were competing against the third proposal that is under negotiation, and the review panel was not in favor of that in its current form. And so, in the current scheme of it, Wise Place was first. If we just did first, second, and third, right? Wise Place was first. Habitat was second, and this proposal from CNC was third, in our priority of funding.
Also, just one other point, when you look at, if you can send you the RFP, so you can look at it, the score sheets there, and it seemed like some of the categories didn't really apply to this project, because this is homeownership, and it seemed like there were more score opportunities for like very low income, if you provided rentals for very low income and extremely low. And I think that's kind of where the scoring made up a difference. And you can't really build homeownership at very, very low income. We're able to do even at the low income, which is 80% of median income.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted to build on that, because that's such an important point, because since we're on the record here, the some of the point scoring, even though it shows 75, Wise Place was eligible for more points in different categories, so they weren't, the total points is different for both projects.
Councilor Betty?
Yeah, and just to be clear on all the great questions that Commissioner Sanada was doing. So you go through a program to select the families to be able to own the home. And you just make the math of the 450, and then the 150 will be fundraised by Habitat for Humanity. How did 300 get financed for that? Through Habitat Humanity too?
The mortgage
Yes.
is an outside lending agency.
It's an outside agency.
It is.
So they are entitled to look for that outside lending, or through your programs you lead them to
Well, they can
find that.
certainly acquire financing on their own. I will say, just like we have many partners and volunteers that help us in other aspects, we have lending institutions that are very much pro-habitat. So, I mean, for instance, I believe the rate lock that we have for these Stanton homes that I mentioned earlier was 3%, and that was a 12-month lock. So these families are closing escrow at 3%, and anyone knows where the interest rates are now, you'd be hard pressed.
Of course. And then, okay, in the case that they want to sell the home, or they cannot afford it anymore, another family will go through the same process that they went through to be able to own that home?
Yes, I mean, in the event of a resale, it's the same program, the same selection process. Everything else is the same, it's just not a new home the second time around.
Well, yeah, those are my questions, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Dunn?
As far as ownership of the property, so how are you guys holding title? Is it, I know it's share equity, it means, are you guys holding like the power of the title itself, and then,
No, we do have a second.
you
We have a
guys?
silent second along similar lines of what the city does.
Okay, and then as far as, resale, to say the property one that you sell, when they appraise that home, is it gonna be at the affordable pricing or is it at the market pricing?
It's appraised at its affordable pricing.
So correct me if I'm wrong, so it takes you $500,000 to build, and let's say the city come in with the $200,000 because it's the affordable housing, the city has to come in with $200,000 different, right? And let's say 10 years later, the value went up to $1.2 million. Does that mean the buyer have to pay back you the $500,000 that you build, and to the city that $200,000 that the city put out at the beginning, that's $700,000. The left 500, would let me $500,000 equity after 10 years. So how is that divided between you and the home ownership?
Okay, if I'm understanding the question, first of all, none of that would trigger unless if the covenant's for 55 years, the same family would have to be in that home for those 55 years for that trigger with the city to apply. You nodded. Did that answer your question, or do I need to go further?
I do want to, I'm curious how, after like they decide to sell the house, how is that break down the equity, like how much the homeowner get the equity out of that percentage, whatever they build over the year.
Well, it's all based on the AMI. So, and I'll give you another, for instance, it's just easier for me to do it this way, but we sold homes in Rancho Santa Margarita 30 years ago. They were 1, 2, and 3 bedroom condos. The starting sales price for affordable, those were very lows, was in the $40,000 range 30-some years ago. Those units are probably worth now, because you're basing on today's AMI, that same unit might be $220 for a very low. So if the home's paid off and it's currently worth $220, there's your equity split. It would be $110,000 coming to the family once they sold it back to us. Does that help?
It does. So, and then there is no any service fees, anything on that, just after.
Well, there's closing costs and all, yeah, just like a normal transaction, and the equity is outside of that.
Okay, but they don't have to pay back what the building cost and everything at the beginning, just for that equity. All right, that's my question. Thank you.
Commissioner Covington?
Okay, first of all, I've always found Habitats for Humanity a great project. In fact, I was in Nashville a few years ago when Jimmy Carter was there. The security was crazy. I couldn't get anywhere close to the guy. But nonetheless, I've always wanted to know a couple different things. Now, today we talked about how this project was, I guess, median income, but then it was downgraded to lower income, basically.
Well, I wouldn't say downgraded. I would say the city's contribution allowed us to build low income as opposed to moderate.
Okay, all right. And we're talking about 80% of the Orange County current median income. I have no idea what that is. What is the current AMI?
Up to 80%. I don't have those numbers in my head either, but I can share this much with you, that the number, it's a sliding number because family size works in. But I think for a moderate, which is because we just did it, it's a little more fresh in my mind, based on, I think it was a family of 4, you could make $120,000 a year and still be under that 120 AMI. So, and that doesn't help you with your questions, it relates to low, but I just don't have those numbers.
I think it'd be a better ballpark. I think Johnson's gonna look it up.
I think something's about to happen here.
Yeah.
So a family at 80% AMI, so 3-person household would be earning less than $96,800.
Okay. All right. Now, the sweat equity, that's always been a question in my mind as to how is that determined? How is that valued? I mean, I've read and seen on the news where the actual future homeowners are out there putting the sticks together, banging hammers, cutting saws, and painting. you talked about retail services. How does the sweat equity come into the purchase really?
Well, again, I think for Habitat, and the rules obviously are fine, this is how it's been since Habitat's inception, but a lot of it is gauging desire. Because I will say there are families, when they realize that the houses aren't free, there's a lot of perception out there that Habitat gives homes away. That's why if we walk away with nothing, there's a mortgage, right? We're not giving it away. We are creating an affordable opportunity, but they still have a mortgage. But the sweat equity is I think it's a means to make sure that families are committed. And I think that is where it came from.
No, I understand that. I'm trying to figure out dollars and dimes, what the formula is. You know, we heard 450. I don't know if that's the true purchase price or not. But if they're volunteering to build, if they're volunteering to work in a retail establishment, I don't know if they have to work after the project is done in another one to get the sweat equity in there. But I'm trying to figure out how sweat equity, their labor, their time, their effort converts into dollars towards their purchase price.
Okay, fair enough, and it doesn't. There is no correlation there. Every family, regardless of what they're qualifying at, they all are required to do 500 hours of sweat equity. Me, husband and wife, 250 each. So, but your ability to pay does not change the amount of hours. It's a fixed number.
Okay, all right. And as far as the purchase price, is that truly established at this point in time, or will that be 18 months down the road?
Well, the purchase price won't change because the only thing that would change it would be if their income were to change. Again, the cost of the house, like the build costs, have nothing to do with what our family qualifies at. So, you know, pick a number. I mean, if it costs us $700,000 to build a home, which it will someday, and our family qualified at $350,000, Habitat would be fundraising around $350,000, and hopefully we'd have subsidy dollars there, you know, with a partner city as well.
Okay, all right. I guess my last question for now would be similar to what my fellow commissioner to my left was asking. You were talking about an example where they had to pay it off. Let's say they live there 10 years, it's time to move on. How does that equity share come into play at that
It's
time?
all driven by the current AMI.
Okay, so there's no formula truly as far as a 50-50 split like the example you gave here was paid. It's just based upon whatever the AMI is at the time, 80%.
Well, yes, it's based on the AMI, whatever that is at the time. The fact that it's a 50-50 split is just a function of whatever the AMI might be at that point in time.
Okay, I think I'm okay.
And I think I can help with that, because I got the numbers here right in front of me. So, the affordable purchase price for that 3-person household at 80% AMI, and this is as of last October, so gotta keep that in mind, was $231,700, right? So,
Was it low?
that was low, yeah. So, then, once Habitat builds the home, right, and it, say it takes a year to construct, right? So it'll be using the AMI at that time, right? And that family will then purchase the house at that set price, right?
But it will never exceed more than 30% of their income. And the comment was made too. That includes mortgage, property taxes, utilities. That's all at 30. So they will never pay more than that.
So a family will get a, $600,000 house or whatever it takes to build it and whatever it's appraised at, it's affordable for $250,000.
Okay, but
Just
again,
rough numbers.
whatever the situation is down the road, like my fellow commissioner to the right asked, there's something happens in the financial capacity of the family, they need to sell, goes back to you, it's 80% of whatever that AMI is at the time, and then a 50-50 split?
Well, it's the 50-50 split of whatever the AMI is
Right.
qualified under at that time. Yes.
Right, okay, I'm clear.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Any other questions?
Her hands up.
Oh, her hand is up for them.
We'll go with you first. Commissioner Martinez?
Thank you. So I think that I can answer some of Commissioner Covington's questions about the income. But first I have some questions to clarify some of this. So we're talking about the price of the home having to do with the income level of the family that is buying this home. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So let's say I'm a one-person household. Would this house be cheaper for me than for a five-person family? Because technically my income level is lower because I am one person, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, yeah.
So typically, usually when we're dealing with homes, especially if it's a 3-bedroom, we do have a requirement on how many people can fit in the home. Because we don't really want to have a single person household buy a 3-bedroom where they could potentially sublet out those rooms. So there are typically, household size requirements in purchasing the homes. And that's what we did with City Ventures with the inclusionary housing. I believe with Habitat, it's the same thing. Because the goal here is to get a family into a home, and that's qualified based on their household income. So a single person couldn't buy it if they were going to live in the home by themselves.
Correct. Okay. So that's the point I'm trying to make, right? So we're shooting for a certain number of family members that will live in this home. If I'm going off of the HUD assumption, and HUD is the US Department of Housing and Urban Development, so I'm not making this up. The definition from HUD is that we have 2 people per room and 1 person in the living room. So for a 3-bedroom house, we would have 7 people.
7 would be a maximum, yes.
Okay, so considering that we're in Santa Ana and we have large families and, you know, it's overcrowded and all of that, if we're talking about the people that live in Santa Ana, let's say we go with like a 6 or 7 person household that would buy this home. Are we all okay with that? Yeah, okay. So in Orange County, the HCD income limit for a 6 or 7 family home for 6 people is $125,750. And for 7 people, it's $134,450. That's a lot of money. The median income, and I'm looking at the census data right now, the median income for the city of Santa Ana is $72,406. So my concern, and I have 2 major concerns with this development, is that it's low density. We need more housing. We need more like low income housing. And we can label it as affordable housing, but low income housing is not affordable to everybody. And I'm showing you all the numbers now. So one, I don't think that there's enough density in this parcel, and I don't think that it's affordable for the average Santa Ana family. So I think the whole point of like, we're building housing for Santa Ana residents is kind of missed in a development of this income level at this price. So those are my concerns with that. If we were to assume that we have to have a family that makes $134,450 a year, the 7-person family home, they would end up spending about $3,361 per month in housing costs for it to be affordable. I don't know anybody, I couldn't afford that. I don't know anybody in Santa Ana who could afford that. So I know that this isn't like exact numbers, but I think it gives us an idea of what it would look like. So my concern is that it's not dense enough and it's not affordable enough. And yeah, those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So let's dive into both of your concerns in specific detail. So first is that this site has been vacant and in a deteriorated state for over a decade. Staff actually researched trying to work with the previous owner, American Family Housing, to rehab the site to create housing opportunities for transitional age youth. And the proposal was it fell through for various reasons. So it wasn't possible to create those kind of opportunities for transitional age youth on this site. So American Family Housing Board decided to sell the site, and Habitat for Humanity fortunately purchased the site instead of a private market developer or a homeowner. The density on the site at four units is deliberate, and it's below 5 because if Habitat for Humanity were to propose to develop 5 units, then it would trigger a discretionary approval of the project, which would then trigger substantial outreach with the surrounding neighborhood, and as well as approval of the entitlements by City Council. And so it jeopardizes the entire project if, for example, the condominium owners next door who own their nice condos next door, or the homeowners across the street don't want the low-income families that we're trying to serve to move into this proposed project. So the four units, it was a very deliberate discussion with Habitat for Humanity regarding those 4 units. We discussed with our planning and building executive director and our assistant city manager whether or not we wanted to ask Habitat to go up to 5, and as staff decided that wasn't in the best interest of the proposal. Regarding the affordability level, so Commissioner, you use a 7-person household for the affordability levels, but the sales price of the home is established based on the bedroom sizes, right? Based on the bedroom count. Okay. Yeah. So it's based on the bedroom count. So we're talking about 3-bedroom household, and a 3-bedroom household. The minimum number of household members that Habitat would be able to serve would be 4. And so a 3-bedroom household, using the data from October 2021, would be set at $250,000, and the household would need to earn less than $107,550. So that is less than the 7-person household income limit that you were referencing. Now Habitat's project here, which Troy Habitat emphasized, right? It's serving low-income families. That's an important distinction, because for the 2 units that were approved by this commission in January 2019 that are being developed in the Lacey neighborhood on the corner of Lacey and Vance, those are designated for moderate income families. And moderate income families, the sales price is going to be set higher for moderate income families. So therefore, these units being designated for low income families means they're more affordable to our residents, and they're more affordable to families who live in our community. So hopefully that addresses your concerns regarding the density of the project. Again, in summary, if the density of the project is increased, it will trigger discretionary approvals and could jeopardize the final approvals of the project, depending on neighborhood opposition to to low-income families moving into their neighborhood. Second, if the affordable sales price is actually lower than what you were referencing.
Quick question, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I follow up on that real quick? Sorry.
For Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks for the clarification on that. I'm looking at the 4-person household income in Orange County, and that would be 108,400, which is close to what you mentioned. This is the 2022 income limits. Still, this is significantly higher than the 72,000 median that we talked about. I understand that this is for low income and that there are obviously still a lot of residents that fall below that. I feel like there are a lot of moderate, low, and low income units that get built, and we tend to forget about the very low and extremely low income, which is very needed in our community. So I just want to make that point. And I fully understand the density part because, you know, I know that it can be difficult to get projects like these approved in the city. What I'm concerned about now is that we're going to make it a trend to underutilize land so that we don't have to go through the, you know, through the process, you know, for us to approve things ministerially. I completely get it. I know that NIMBYism is a big thing, and I'm just concerned that we're gonna use this as a workaround and end up underutilizing the land that we have. Yeah, so that I just wanted to point to that a little bit, because I mean, there were other proposals with higher density, and I understand why we didn't go with them and that it's easier to approve this. But yeah, that's just another concern. And on that note, if it's, you know, residential lot, there's still a possibility to add ADUs to the lot if there's enough space to increase the units, and some of those ADUs could be built by right if they meet the right criteria.
Thank you, Commissioner. That last point kind of threw me off a little bit. You are correct on the ADUs part. I think we've addressed your concerns sufficiently regarding the density, minus that ADU point at the end. But I do want to return back to your concern about the affordability level. Our direction from City Council has been to finance the development of affordable housing for extremely low-income families and very low-income families, particularly large, very low-income families and extremely low-income families. So what this comes down to is project economics. If the commission were to want Habitat for Humanity to serve very low-income families, then we'd have to return back to work with Habitat for Humanity to calculate how much additional money they'll need. If the commission were to ask Habitat, we want you to build units for very low-income families, then they're going to need more money to do it. I just want to make that readily transparent, that it does come down to project economics at the end of the day.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Great.
Member Hepburn.
Great. So I think Commissioner Martinez kind of started the point here is that, you know, I can see where she's coming from. However, you said earlier that the city paid Habitat for Humanity to convert moderate to low income earlier, right? Like there was more funding given from the city to Habitat for Humanity to make folks more low income right?
Yes, they needed more money from the city in order to develop these units for low income families because
So
they
it
would
would
lower
have been
sales.
moderate, right?
if we had given them, say, $800,000 or $500,000, they would have built a traditional project for moderate income families.
Okay, good, so make sure that's, and then, you know, I heard across the room that, the folks would not be able to sublet any of the rooms.
It's really not recommended. I mean, typically what happens is if you have a
In a
family.
family, a child goes to college,
Oh.
husband gets divorced, there's
No.
two extra rooms, like,
That, I think is okay, you know, they have someone go in there, but they can't, a single family, see, the reason they put those occupancy limits is so that families can move into these homes. And if a single person wants to buy a 3-bedroom, most likely they're going to get roommates, and then when someone applies for one of these loans, or to purchase one of these homes, we calculate the income of the entire household, not just the people on title. So that's where it's different with a regular mortgage. If you go to buy a house and you're buying it, you can make that decision whether you want to qualify on your own or if you want to include your significant other or your cousin. But in these type of situations, we're going to count the income of everyone in the household. So anybody that works, their income is included as part of the household. So if it is 2 parents and 2 adult children, all 4 people, their income is going to count whether or not they're going to be on title. So the rule was always that if it's a 2 or 3 bedroom, if it's a 3-bedroom, it's set aside for families or like Judson said, minimum household members. So in the future, once the house is theirs, if they want to rent out a room or that's okay. It's just at the time of application.
We're building the houses from the bottom up, so like, you know, we can get really creative as far as design and stuff like that. 'Cause I feel like, you know, a lot of people work from home. Housing is looking very different, and I think, can you bring back the photo of the layout of the farmhouse? Because I also want to say, like, you know, like people are really making a buy, and I think there is a comment made about ADUs. Is there any restrictions from Habitat Humanity for ADUs?
You mean the video?
No, the layout.
I believe it was called the vision.
Illustration?
Okay, so to answer your question, no, there's no restriction, but Habitat is not we're not in the business, as it were, of creating income generating properties for our families. The only scenario where we would do an ADU would be a lot split, meaning we would create a second unit that is ownership on the lot. What would preclude any of that happening here is simply the zoning doesn't allow for it. This is a 4-unit project without going to that layer of discretionary approval.
So planning wouldn't approve an ADU because it's not zoned for this, just want to make sure that's clear. And I'm sorry, indulgence, we have a lot of questions and we're really trying to, you know, just get clear answers and just, you know, so.
Yeah, I'd have to research that with planning. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. But also but what Troy is saying though is that their products that they provide are their 231 units, right? You don't have ADUs in any of your other projects?
No, we do not. I will say though, we are in the process of using SB9 for the first time as an affiliate, which creates that opportunity to split, you know, one lot and create 2 taxable parcels. We are doing that. Actually, it's in the city of Costa Mesa. One home currently exists, we're putting 2. So, you know, again, it's doubling it. I realize it's maybe not the density that everyone would like, but we're having to do this within the confines of what the cities will allow too. So, but again, that will be separate ownership. We would not put an ADU on a lot with the intention of one of our families making money off of it. That is not what we're in the business of doing.
Okay. I understand, and that's
Okay.
fair, but like, I also like, when the economy doubles down and things get tough, like, people tend to get really creative as how, they're gonna make it and stuff like that, so that's just a thought, and then, what would happen if this project does not move forward to get judged? If all commissions decide not to vote or send it back to city staff for different review, what would happen?
Yeah, well, so it'd be dependent on commission direction, so if the commission, voted to deny, voted not in favor of the project, it would die a very quick death, and we would take the funds and we would, issue them in a future RFP for.
Because the city still owns that parcel, right?
We don't own that parcel. That's not our land.
Who owns that land now?
The Habitat for Humanity.
Okay.
And so it would, Habitat would need to find another source of funds to, develop a project on that site, or they may decide to sell the site, but we would not be, awarding any funds to the project. And the second scenario, if the commission were to direct staff, give direction to staff on whichever direction you want to go, increasing units, decreasing the affordability levels, then we'd have to return and evaluate the project economics and see how much more money that Habitat needs in order to meet the direction of the commission, and then we return with what the project that the commission wants.
Okay, so that's it for me. I'm sure I have another question further down. I'll keep bringing it back to Chair. Or I know Jordan raised your hand earlier, so I'm not sure. I'm not ready. It's a weird, like.
Member Baldwin has next. Yes. Member Baldwin.
Good afternoon. I just was curious about, it said mentioned here that it's a local preference for residents who live or work in the city of Santa Ana. And I just was curious if they couldn't find any eligible home buyers in Santa Ana, would they direct to other cities?
Well, that's absolutely what we do, yeah. First we would do outreach, whether someone works or lives within the city of Santa Ana, there would be preference there. But we couldn't agree to a scenario where it would be only, because then we could have a project without families when we were done building. That's not something we can do either.
It would also, legally, it would be a violation of fair housing. If we were to have a requirement for a local preference. If you imagine like, a very wealthy city, requiring their residents be served in that project, you can imagine how that'd be tailored to other cities.
I'm just curious about that. And also, so many eligible home buyers, just curious to see how many eligible home buyers usually would apply, I guess, for the homes.
Oh, okay, that's a really good question. And it's timely because we've sort of restructured our marketing and how we're doing our outreach. And this goes back a few months when we were still looking for a final family to stand. But we were having 400 applicants respond on a monthly basis. And again, some of them just to ask questions because they don't know what we do or don't know about the program. But a year and a half ago, we were having maybe 8 or 10 respond. So the number is significant, and we believe it's because we've changed how we're reaching out, and it's benefiting. We're reaching more people.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner,
No, I think he had questions. You can go ahead.
You want me to go ahead?
Commissioner Lynn?
So for the homeowner, what kind of achievement do they have to come in? Do they have to put down payment, or just and then what percent of that no payment will be like anywhere from 3.5% to like 10%, 20%?
Yeah, and there's actual programs too that help with down payment assistance. But yes, it's again, other than the fact that we are sort of fundraising around the delta between market rate and affordable, everything else is pretty much a market transaction. So
just the thing is, so with a $500,000 home, if somebody want to get buy that property, do they require to have at least a minimum of 10% down, or like 3, 4, 5% down, or 20% down, to get that qualified for the home?
I want to say it's 10.
It's 3 usually.
It's
Even with
over
Habitat, it's 3%.
Okay.
3% minimum down payment of their own funds, which has to be in the bank for at least 90 days.
Yes. So whatever, then that's the mortgage that they have to pay. And then, but you say something about 30% of their income, to qualify for that.
Well, again, this is how we figure out what we can sell the home to our family for, is their home expense will not exceed more than 30% of their gross income. So that's why I use the scenario of, 500,000 versus 350. 350 being 30% of their income, Habitat fundraises around that other 150.
So you're saying if they choose to go for 3% down, that means their payment usually be higher than if they come in at 10%. And then, the payment here, let's say like 3,000 a month, and then they just pay that 30% of that.
Well, okay, yeah, I guess there's a possibility of that happening. I mean, I can recall, it's been a few years ago, we had a family that wanted to put $100,000 down. We determined that family probably didn't have the same need that other families did, so we did not move forward with them, right? And you can see the economics of that. If someone's got sitting on $100,000, maybe they're not who we're targeting in all of this. So,
back to the development. What are the lot size square footage on the property? Actually, I looked at online. There's no information on it.
the square footage of
The lot size.
I think it's about 16,000. It might be 15 to 16.
Okay, so that's a very big lot for me, and to develop for unit that's a lot of space. Because I'm looking here, it's like each of the units require 2 car garage, and then you also build 8 additional parking. That's a lot of space that you can develop into something, like again, go back to the ADU. And nowadays we're talking about the new kind of eliminate the parking lot, to build, using that to build more, and I think that's a lot of space we can utilize to build more housing on the lot, especially the 16,000 square footage.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Your thinking and also Commissioner Santana's thinking on the density of the unit and our other commissioner, it was the same thinking that we had on the review panel. It was should we ask Habitat to increase the density on this project, and then we'll increase their funding accordingly. It's the trade-off. Do you want to increase the density, and it has to go through as a discretionary approval and up to City Council for their entitlements, and risk the project not getting approved, or do you want a project built by right under SB 9? And that's a trade-off. The review panel with our experts and staff thought this project is better off a discretionary approval at the staff level.
What's the neighborhood? What's the neighborhood characteristic for that neighborhood? Like, are they all like condo, apartment building, or single family with 2-story?
It's primarily single family. I will say directly east of us, the adjacent property, built something very similar. I'm assuming it's market rate, but it's 3 homes on a shared drive, a flag lot essentially. So again, front to back, 1, 2, 3. But that seems to be unique too. I mean, that was the thing that gave me comfort when we were looking at the site, was it had already been done. But by and large, they're single family homes.
Yeah, good.
I can add to that real quick. So just looking at the zoning for that area, right there on Washington, just that row of properties right there is R2 zoning, which allows that kind of the townhome. It's called, it's not as dense as multifamily housing, but all of the properties behind it in the neighborhood, it's all single family residential zoning.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, the 16,000 square foot, if you get that zone split in half, that 8,000 each, and then on that 8,000, I have seen where they can build a duplex, triplex on an 8,000 square foot before, so that's something to keep in mind. So, in potential, that's a 60 unit in my head, that minimum, that you can build. I mean, I've been to property in Long Beach where they can build, a little more than that, on the same side lot. But 16,000 is a large square footage for a 4 unit, in my opinion.
Okay, just to clarify, we're talking about the lot size of 16,000 square feet, right? Not the unit. Okay, I just want to understand.
I did want to share, I appreciate all the commissioners, all your questions, all your input, and the idea of maximizing the density on the property. But we're looking at home ownership as opposed to rental property, so I think, like, keeping in mind, this would be for home ownership, you know, people want to have a yard, people want to have all these things that make home ownership something to strive for, something to want, as opposed to a rental, like apartments. So if this project was for apartments for rental, I think I would push for, let's get more density, but since this is for home ownership, I do like the layout and everything that's being presented. I still have some discretions about, the pricing and the AMI and things like that, but I think for what's being constructed, what's being sold, and the idea of home ownership for low income, I think this is something that's doable. I believe, Justin, I believe the number you said was 231,700 for October 2021 of the
249,000.
249,000. Yeah, I think like for market rate for homes that are going from $1 million, 249. I mean, I think that's affordable for a family who's looking for an affordable home in Santa Ana, if they live in Santa Ana or work in Santa Ana. So I would just want our commission members to keep that in mind, that this isn't a rental property where folks can rent out a 2-bedroom apartment. This is home ownership of a 3-bedroom property. So I just wanted to make that point because I felt like that kept coming up. But does anybody have any additional questions? I do just have one more question. And my final question, when would the voucher process start? When would folks be able to start applying to see if they can be part of the 4 potential owners?
That's a great question. We have, this project we know is gonna take probably 12 to 14 months, depending on the time of year we start. We do know that the process to take a family through is about 10 months. So we would probably have started construction in some form, and we don't have what's called a waiting list. So it just goes out to a new orientation. We have families certainly that reapply, but we don't have a list or a ranking. When a new project comes our way, we do an orientation. Those who applied in the past are certainly welcome to apply again. Does that answer that?
Yes, it does. So, Commissioner Compton.
I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the chair's comments, and I agree. It's a different set of eyes that's looking at a property to live in than to rent. And higher density really does impact the quality of life for the homeowner. And I can tell you, I don't know what neighborhood is this in. Give me a name of a neighborhood, I don't know where it is. You know the name of the neighborhood?
It's right around the corner from Santa Ana College.
Is it on the Washington Square side, or is it on the other side, west of Bristol?
Other side, west of Bristol.
Okay, I can guarantee you that a high-density project would probably rile up quite a few of the local homeowners as well. So it would be a project that probably wouldn't fit, but I would vote to move forward, and you know what, I'll bring it up.
I mean, just to say one thing is that, you know, yes, everyone wants a yard manicure, but again, like, have that humanity on this property knowing very well that, you know, this is so, my thing is like, I'm not against the property, I think that, you know, density would be good. There's a lot of space, so I make a motion that city staff look into how we can include more density, if I can get a second.
I'll second that motion. I would like to see more density into this, because you're right, I feel like it's a big lot, and we're in the need, like the Commissioner Martinez was talking about, we're in the need of a lot of low income, affordable housing in the city. So, I feel we can do more with that. I'll second your motion.
Can I comment on something here? I'm not sure, because there was even some confusion as to who owned the lot, and Habitat does own this lot. We did purchase it outside of this RFP. I think that what's important to understand is the discussion here is if the city chooses, or if this commission chooses not to move forward, that would be in terms of a financial subsidy to support the project. What that would translate to is Habitat would probably move forward with moderate income units. So I just want to, and again, I don't want this to come off as threatening, I just want to make sure everybody understands the impacts of what we're discussing here.
But, and so then, you know, just instead, if you wanted to, because well, I want to bring it back to the chair, because this is the chair's running the meeting, you're not running the meeting, sir. But we as a commission respond to the staff, we have questions. And like Mr. Justin said, if you want to make this property in very low income, the city would have to go back and find more money. So what you're saying is wrong. Staff has just said, if we want to change this project a little bit, we would have to find more money to target low to extremely low income. So if the chairwoman can manage the meetings, there has been a motion, there's a second, and you interjected, which is great, but I think we're all thinking here, and if you're getting upset and patient, we can take a break, that's cool, but for us, like, we're thinking what's best for our community, the neighborhood that we live in. So that being said, please show some some respect to the commission, sir. But going back to Mr. Brown, there's a motion, if we send it back, then what you're saying is that you would not move forward with low house, you'd go back to moderate?
I'll respond. So thank you, Commissioner Santana. If the commission sends it back with direction to staff to increase the density, then we'll reach out to Habitat for Humanity with our real estate advisor and ask them to see how many units they can put on the project, put on the site. So maybe up to 6 units or 1 additional unit, whatever that comes out to be. And then they would need to let us know how much additional funds they'll need from the city. And then we'll evaluate our resources. We do currently have, fortunately, we do currently have resources in our inclusionary housing fund to increase the subsidy to the project. And so then we would return to the commission with a new project proposal for additional funds and a new design for the project.
Right, and you know, so my thing is, I'm looking at housing for everyone, right? Housing is for veterans, first home buyers. I agree with, you know, Chairwoman, that, you know, people want a home with yard and all that stuff, but I think we're in a housing crisis, and if we can just look, you know, be creative on this project, I think we can do well. And that being said, I'm not sure, I made a motion.
I just want to clarify your motion, because what I understood you did, it was you were directing staff.
Correct.
To talk to Habitat the community about getting more density on the units, and then we'll support, and then it will be going back if there's more money that we have to allocate for that. And I second that my motion, how you presented it. And the motion was directed to staff. Well, directing staff to do that, correct? Yeah.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I did have a question for this project. Would it be possible to move away from homeownership and do some sort of rental property build, or is that not a thing that Habitat for Humanity does?
That is not a thing that Habitat for Humanity does. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. So we don't have a motion to approve item number 1. Is that correct, Commission?
My motion is just to direct city staff to look into more density, and I'm not trying to kill the project, I'm just trying to maybe push it off for a further revitalize again in the future.
And I second that motion.
All those in favor?
You might want to do roll call?
Yeah.
Can we request a roll call possible?
Madam Chair, and let me make sure too, because we want to return with the project that would be approved by the commission. So the commission is only seeking to direct staff regarding the density, not the affordability.
Correct.
Can I ask one last question?
Of course, Commissioner Cunningham.
Okay. The immediate neighborhood, you said there's a few properties, whether it's duplexes or townhomes. Would you say the high majority of where this project would lie is surrounded by freestanding single-family homes?
Yes, I would, even the one that's directly west of us, it's 3 detached, single-family homes on that parcel. So even to go as far as to say there's duplex product in that area, I can't say that with any certainty. Everything driving by appears to be single-family freestanding.
Okay, just out of curiosity, has this project been presented to that neighborhood for their feedback?
No, it has not. No, it has not.
Okay, I am leaning, I respect my fellow commissioner's opinion, but I am leaning in favor of the project, but it sounds like it may go back. If it does, I would encourage you to speak to the neighborhood association and get their support or their feedback or some type of quality control check. That's all.
So we're all in favor of, pushing city staff to check on density and then come back with a different number or a different look on the property bill?
No, can we do a roll call vote? I think there's a request.
Yeah. Roll call vote for Member Recording Secretary.
Commissioner Covington,
No.
Commissioner Leh,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Santana,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliva,
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornelius.
Nay.
Thank you. 5 yes and 2 no.
So item number 2 will go back to city staff for further information. We now have one item under work study session. Please note that there will be no motion or action taken on this item. The first item on the business calendar is item number 3, 2022 Orange County point in time count. Will staff report on the matter?
Madam Chair, we actually have a meeting starting at 6 p.m.
It's through Zoom, but because of the same account, using the same account, the 2 meetings, it overlaps. And so their meeting starts at 6 p.m. And it's the House Human Resources.
Oh, okay. As you heard, right? So we have a conflict with Zoom with another meeting, and if we would be unable to continue with the Zoom portion of our meeting, which is at it's half. So if it's okay with the commission, we can bring this item to our next commission meeting in response to the commission's direction.
Can we do a roll call vote?
Do we need a motion for that, or you're just asking us to just move it?
Asking to continue it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it either way. Staff could really just say that they're going to pull the item off the agenda, or we could do it by the commission taking a vote and saying that they will move it to the next meeting. It works the same both ways.
Okay, so just start a motion to move the item to the next meeting.
To the next meeting.
Second.
Can we do a roll call vote?
Who motion and who second?
Second.
I
Motion
motion
and
and
second. Thank you. Let me just do that. Commissioner Covington,
Yes.
Commissioner Leh,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Santana,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliva,
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornelius.
Yes,
Thank you. We're moving that item for the next meeting.
This meeting is officially adjourned. The next regular meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July 27th at 2022 at 4 p.m.
4:30.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, check it out.